The first time Martha Patterson saw the man walking toward her gate, she thought he might be the kind of trouble that never leaves. He was alone on the long Texas road. No horse, no wagon, no bedroll on his back. Just a man dragging his boots through August dust, like each step cost him something painful. The sky above her small cabin was already turning dark, heavy clouds rolling in fast. Thunder grumbled low across the land. Martha stood from her porch chair, heart pounding hard against her ribs. A man who walked this far in heat like that was either desperate or dangerous. Maybe both. She reached for the old shotgun, leaning just inside the door. It held no shells, but it gave her courage. Out here, a woman alone could not afford to look afraid. The man stopped at the crooked gate, but did not touch it. He removed his hat slowly, a rain beginning to fall from the brim. "Ma'am," he called, voice rough and tired. "Storm's coming hard. Mind if I wait it out on your porch?" Lightning flashed white across the yard, and for one clear second she saw him fully. His face was weathered like old saddle leather. Lines carved deep around steady gray eyes. Not young, not old, just worn, like life had pressed heavy on him for years. Her mind repeated the rule every frontier woman knew. Never turn away someone in need. Never trust a man with empty hands. Both felt true. "It's dry under here," she said at last, pointing to the second rocker. "Not an invitation. Just shelter." He nodded once and lifted the gate latch slowly, careful, like he wanted her to see he meant no harm. He even tied the rawhide loop back in place behind him, respecting the boundary, when that small act eased something tight inside her chest. He crossed the yard like he was afraid to disturb the dust. When he sat, he did it gently, letting out a long breath like he had been carrying something heavier than miles. Then the storm struck. Rain hammered the tin roof so loud it shook the porch beams. Wind tore through the trees. Lightning split the sky open again and again. Martha sat across from him, needle paused in her mending cloth, watching. He did not fidget. He did not stare at her things. He did not scan the yard for weakness. He just sat still, hands resting on scarred knuckles, eyes closed, listening to the storm like it was an old friend. For the first time in years, Martha did not feel alone on her porch. Then she saw it, a dark stain along his sleeve. Blood. Her needle froze in the air. But before she could speak, the rain softened. Thunder rolled farther away. The storm passed as quickly as it came. Dawn arrived quiet and gray. Martha woke expecting to find the porch empty. Instead, she heard metal clanging outside. She rushed to the window and lifted the curtain. The stranger stood in her yard, shirtless, sweat already shining on his back in the cool morning air. Her broken gate lay flat in the dirt. Her late husband's old hammer and saw were spread neatly beside him. He was not stealing. He was fixing. For 3 years, she had fought that stubborn gate alone. It sagged crooked. It scraped the ground. She never had the strength to mend it proper. "You got no right using those tools," she called, stepping onto the porch with the empty shotgun in her hands. He did not look up. "Gate was failing," he said calmly. Figured to set it straight." "I didn't ask you." "No, ma'am." He cut new rawhide straps steady and sure. "Cornbread don't come free," he added quietly. Her cheeks warmed. He was paying for the meal she gave him, not asking for charity, working for it. She lowered the shotgun. "You hungry?" she asked. "I could eat." Inside the cabin, she froze. The stove fire was already lit. The water bucket was full. Chores she normally faced alone before sunrise were already done. Who was this man? When she stepped back outside with coffee in a tin cup, she asked, "You got a name?" He hesitated only a moment. "Silas." She nodded. "Martha Patterson." He tipped his head with quiet respect. "Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Patterson." He finished the gate, wiped her tools clean like they were sacred, and set them neatly on the porch. And then he said the words that made her stomach tighten. "Storm's past. I'll be moving on." Her heart stumbled. She looked at the straight, solid gate, at the fire, at the water, at the empty yard she had lived in alone for 3 long years. "Wait," she said softly. Silas paused. "The creek's up," she lied gently. "Crossing ain't safe today." He knew she was lying. She knew he knew. Still, he stayed. And something in Martha's lonely world shifted. Silas stayed. Not because the creek was high. Not because he had nowhere to go. He stayed because she asked. That first full day turned into 2. Then 3. By sunrise, he was already walking her fence line, testing the wire with strong hands that knew ranch work. He moved with quiet purpose, like a man used to fixing broken things. Martha watched him from the window, pretending she was only looking at the sky. She did not want to get used to someone being there. But she did. He hauled water before she woke, split enough wood for 3 days, repaired loose shingles without being told. He never asked what needed doing. He simply saw it. They spoke little at first. Silence used to feel heavy in that cabin. Now it felt full. She cooked. He worked. They ate at the same table but on opposite sides. He never reached for more food than she gave, never pushed conversation where it was not welcome. On the 4th morning, she caught herself smiling when she saw him crossing the yard. That frightened her more than the storm had. Later that afternoon, he came back from the far fence with something serious in his eyes. "That wire won't hold through winter," he said. Needs more than patchwork." She wiped her hands on her apron. "I don't have money for new wire." He studied her carefully. "I can work for meals. That'll cover it." It would not cover it. Not really. But she nodded. Sometimes the only thing harder than asking for help was accepting it. 2 days later, he walked into town and came back leading 2 horses. One calm and gentle, the other tall and strong. "Mayor's letting me borrow," he said. "Partners ought to share what they need." The word sat strange on her tongue. "Partners," she repeated quietly. He nodded once. That night they sat closer than before on the porch. He carved at a cedar stick with his knife while she ditched a torn seam. The sky turned orange, then deep blue. Without meaning to, she began talking. "My daddy built this cabin," she said softly. Cut every log himself." Silas did not interrupt. "Lost him when I was 16. Mama died the year before that. Baby came wrong and didn't live." Her voice did not shake. She had told the story so many times inside her own head that the pain had grown quiet. "I married Samuel," she continued. 10 good years. Then pneumonia took him. Been alone 3 since." Silas kept carving, but she saw his jaw tighten. "I lost someone too," he said after a while. "To sickness?" she asked. He shook his head. "To lies." She looked at him carefully. How does a man lose someone to lies? He stared out at the dark fields. "Trusted the wrong partner. Cost me everything." He did not say more. She did not press. Some wounds were not ready to open. By the 6th evening, the space between their rockers had grown smaller, not by much, but enough. Yet he told her a story about a stubborn mule stuck in a creek and how he sat for 2 hours in freezing water waiting the animal out. Martha laughed. Really laughed. The sound startled them both. The next morning she found his torn shirt and worn socks folded beside her mending basket. He did not ask her to fix them. She did anyway. He stacked enough firewood to last a week. They were becoming something like a team, though neither dared name it. Then trouble rolled in. A black buggy came fast toward the gate one evening, moving too hard for a friendly visit. Two men stepped out dressed in heavy suits that did not belong in Texas heat. Silas rose slowly, placing himself between the strangers and Martha. The fat one smiled wide, but cold. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "Name's Thornton. Know hear about your tax situation." Her stomach dropped. He spread papers across her porch railing like he owned the place. "Land's been reassessed," he said smoothly. "Value's gone up. You owe $47. Due in 3 weeks. $47. More money than she had held at one time since Samuel died. "I don't have that," she whispered. Thornton's smile tightened. "Well, lucky for you. I'm prepared to offer $200 cash for the property. Today. $200 for the land her father carved from wilderness, for the graves on the hill, for every memory she had left. No, she said firmly. This is my home." Thornton's voice hardened. "You have no income, no help, no future here. Take the offer while you still have dignity." Silas stepped forward. "That's a low price," he said calmly. "Land like this runs $5 an acre at least." Thornton's eyes narrowed. "This ain't your concern, boy." Silas did not blink, did not move. When the buggy left, Martha's hands were shaking so bad she had to grip the porch rail. "I got $18 saved," she said quietly. "Need 94 total to clear it all." Silas looked at her with something fierce behind his calm eyes. "This ain't about taxes," he said softly. "Someone wants your land." She sank into her rocker, fear rising like a flood. "What am I going to do?" Silas knelt in front of her and took her trembling hand in his. "You ain't alone," he said, and for the first time since Thornton arrived, she believed him. Martha did not sleep that night. She lay awake staring at the wooden beams above her bed, while the wind brushed against the cabin walls, and every sound felt louder. Every shadow looked deeper. Losing her land would not just mean losing dirt and wood. It would mean losing her father's work, her husband's memory, the only proof she had that her life meant something. Outside, Silas sat on the porch like a guard, watching the dark. Near midnight, she stepped out quietly and lowered herself into the rocker beside him. "Can't sleep?" he asked, without looking at her. "No." The moon hung pale over the field. A coyote cried somewhere far off. "I'm tired of fighting alone," she said. Silas was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "You won't be." The next morning, the sheriff returned with more papers, more threats. Martha signed what she had to sign, her pride burning hot in her chest. Thornton stood beside the buggy with that same oily smile. After they left, when she went inside and scrubbed her hands until her skin turned red, mud came off. The shame did not. Silas knocked gently on the doorframe. "You ain't helpless," he said. "Thornton saw exactly what I am," she answered bitterly. "A widow with no money." Silas stepped closer. "I saw a woman keeping her land alive with nothing but grit." She could not hear it. Not yet. That evening she held her mother's wedding ring in her palm. "I'll sell it," she said quietly. "It'll help." Silas's voice turned sharp for the first time. "That ain't happening. It has to." "No," he said firmly. "Not like that." She looked at him hard. "As charity?" "No. As partners." She hesitated. "Equal?" "Always equal." She nodded once. "All right." On Monday, Silas rode to town alone. 3 days later, But Martha stood on the courthouse steps for the tax auction. Her black dress clung to her in the heat. Men whispered. Speculators watched her like wolves waiting for weakness. Thornton stood near the clerk, confident. "Opening bid," the clerk began. "Stop." The word cut through the crowd. Martha turned. Silas walked forward, but not the man she knew. He wore a tailored dark suit, boots polished, watch chain glinting in the sun, his hair trimmed clean. He moved through the crowd with the calm of someone who belonged anywhere he chose. Whispers spread quickly. He stepped to the clerk and placed a thick stack of bills on the table. "65 for the note," he said clearly. "47 for the taxes. 18 Mrs. Patterson, she's saved." He laid the money down one amount at a time. "Her debts are settled in full. Auction's void." The yard fell silent. The clerk counted, nodded. Thornton's face turned red. "Silas Blackwood," someone whispered. "Blackwood Cattle Company. Fort Worth." A millionaire cowboy. Thornton tried to speak, but Silas cut him off with cold calm. "I've spoken with the governor and the land office," he said. "I know about the false assessments, about every widow you pushed off their land." Thornton's smile was gone. "You can fight me in court," Silas continued evenly, "but you won't win." The crowd shifted. Murmurs turned sharp. Thornton backed down. Outside the courthouse, Martha stood frozen. Not from fear, from shock. Silas approached her slowly. "You lied," she said softly. "I didn't lie," he answered. "I just didn't tell you everything." "You watched me panic," she said. "You watched me think about selling my mother's ring." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'm sorry." She turned away, heart torn between anger and something deeper. He could have ended her fear at any time, but he stayed. He worked. He listened. He chose to stand beside her. "Why?" she finally asked. "Because here," he said gently, "I don't feel alone." The noise of town faded. The heat felt distant. "Partners," she whispered. 50-50, he replied. They rode back to the cabin side by side. In the weeks that followed, Silas returned with lumber, wire, seed, and cattle. Not as a savior, as a partner. He told her he sold his Fort Worth holdings. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Because I want to build something better," he said. "With you." They walked the land together, planning fences and barns, and they stood at her parents' graves and bowed their heads. "I'm not alone anymore," Martha whispered. Back on the porch, 2 rocking chairs sat close now. No space between them. At sunrise, she reached for his hand. He turned his palm upward and held tight. The wind moved gently across the fields, not like a warning this time, like a blessing.